Across the world, there are structures that defy explanation, built in remote or unexpected places with puzzling purposes, from massive towers in desolate landscapes to sprawling facilities in uninhabited regions. These unusual pieces of infrastructure have sparked curiosity and speculation. Join me for today's video. I'm counting down the 15 most unusual infrastructure projects built in starting with number 15. So we're used to seeing and using bridges that are made of wood or concrete, but in one region of India, things are very different. Found in the tropical rainforests of Meghalaya, there are bridges that are made from roots of rubber trees by the indigenous Khasi and Jaintia people. These living root bridges are not built, they're grown, using a technique that's been passed down through the generations. The process of creating a root bridge starts as one of the wettest places on Earth, and traditional wooden or metal bridges would quickly erode in those conditions. But these root bridges are actually becoming stronger over time as the roots continue to grow and entwine. One of the most famous examples is the double-decker root bridge near the village of Nungriat, which has 2 layers of roots that have woven together to form a bridge on 2 levels. It shows the expertise of the local people in altering their environment, and as an added benefit, unlike conventional bridges which require periodic repair, root bridges are self-sustaining, making them an example of regenerative design. Some root bridges are believed to be over 500 years old and stronger than ever. The creation and upkeep of these bridges are community projects that encourage cooperation and respect for tradition, with every generation learning the skill of root guidance and it being an essential part of their cultural heritage. Number 14. The Tiger Cave Temple in Thailand. The Tiger Cave Temple, or Wat Tham Suey, steep steps. This climb is challenging, particularly in Thailand's tropical heat, but one that's worth it if you can, because at the top there's a golden Buddha statue sitting serenely on a rock ledge overlooking the Andaman Sea. This view is one of the most stunning in Thailand and offers a rare opportunity to see the surrounding landscape from a unique vantage point. Now, the temple is also known for its grounds, which include several caves, smaller temples, and statues. The central cave, which is full of stalactites, is believed to have been used as a meditation site by a monk who founded the temple in the 1970s. This monk was known for his deep devotion to Buddhist practices, choosing the cave as a retreat because of its quiet isolation. Elsewhere, there are relics and statues that represent Buddhist teachings, with pilgrims and devotees coming from near and far to offer prayers and meditate. For many, the temple is not only a place of worship, but also a symbol of overcoming challenges, as the journey to the top can be seen as a metaphor for the inner struggles one must face 282 feet or 86 meters below sea level. The overlook itself has a viewing platform along with additional trails that lead to slightly higher points, which are perfect for those looking to escape the small crowds. The elevation here often results in cooler temperatures compared to the valley floor, which can be a welcome relief in the summer months when Death Valley reaches some of the hottest temperatures on Earth. From Dante's view on a clear day, you can see Telescope Peak to the west, which towers over Death Valley at an elevation of 11,000 feet or 3,350 meters, as well as the salt flats of Badwater Basin directly below. The clarity of the air here, particularly in the cooler months, allows for a surprising range of visibility. If it seems familiar, that's because the viewing platform's been used as a filming location in a number of popular movies, most famously Star Wars, where it was used to represent the planet of Tatooine. This adds an extra layer of interest for fans of the franchise, many of whom make journeys to this isolated viewpoint to experience the landscape at 10 feet or 3 meters below the surface of the ocean. This underwater post office is off the coast of Hideaway Island, near Port Vila, which is the capital of Vanuatu. Opened in 2003, it's attracted divers and snorkelers, plus tourists who come to send special waterproof postcards from beneath the waves. This one-of-a-kind post office is, of course, a tourist trap, but it's proven to be very successful. The post office is pretty easy to reach for divers and snorkelers who can swim down to the small cabin-like structure. It's marked by a buoy above the surface, making it easy to find, and inside specially trained postal staff are sometimes on duty to assist visitors with their postcards. To mail a postcard, you need to buy waterproof postcards from the Hideaway Island Resort, which manages the post office. These postcards are designed to withstand underwater conditions and are marked with a unique cancellation stamp, making them an unusual souvenir. The mailbox is regularly emptied by the resort staff, who then send the postcards on their way through the Cambodia that's known for its traditional stilt houses and can be found along the banks of the Tonle Sap Lake, which is the largest freshwater lake in Southeast Asia. Just an hour from Siem Reap, Kampong Plok shows an unexpected way of life and how things have had to adapt in Cambodia's floodplain communities. With houses elevated on tall wooden stilts that stand high above the water, the village changes dramatically with the seasons. During the rainy times, it appears to float on the lake, while in the dry months, the stilts are fully exposed, revealing the structures that are up to 20 feet or 6 meters high. Residents of the fishing village rely on Tonle Sap for food, water, and their livelihoods, but the lake itself undergoes a massive change each year as water from the Mekong River flows backward into it, making it swell 5 times its dry season size. This seasonal flooding fills the lake with nutrients and turns it into one of the most productive fishing grounds in the world. Fish is then the main source of income for the people here, and fishing skills and techniques are passed down through the generation. Number 10. The Mansell Sea Forts in the UK. The Mansell Sea Forts, which are off the coast of the UK, are a set of wartime structures that were built in the Thames and Mersey estuaries during the Second World War. Named after their designer Guy Mansell, they were originally built in 1942 as part of Britain's coastal defense system to protect against German air raids and naval mines. Standing above the water on tall, spindly legs, they almost look like something out of a science fiction movie, with a combination of military engineering and post-apocalyptic architecture. Each fort was equipped with anti-aircraft guns and searchlights to detect and shoot down German planes before they could reach the mainland, with the forts in the Thames estuary known as the Red Sands, Shivering Sands, and Nori Forts. The Mersey forts were positioned to guard Liverpool, which is a major port city essential for transporting troops and supplies across the Atlantic. And manned up to 265 soldiers at a time, they successfully downed countless enemy planes and deterred attacks on the Mersey forts were dismantled, but the Thames estuary forts were left in place. The abandoned structures have since been claimed by the sea, the elements, and even by modern-day adventurers. In the 1960s, some of the forts were occupied by pirate radio stations, which took advantage of their location to illegally broadcast music and circumvent the British broadcasting regulations. Number 9. Kelly's Castle in Malaysia. Kelly's Castle is a strange ruin in Perak, Malaysia, that was built in the early 20th century by a Scottish planter called William Kelly Smith. It was meant to be a symbol of wealth and a gift to his wife and a residence for their family, but it was never completed, and today it's become a monument to colonial ambition. The story of the castle began when William Kelly Smith, a Scottish immigrant, arrived in Malaysia in the late 19th century. He soon built up a fortune through his rubber plantation and tin mining business, which allowed him to begin building a large residence that would show off his success. The castle features grand businesses, and building was paused. For various reasons, construction never began again, and his family returned to Scotland, abandoning the property completely. The castle became a ruin, slowly overgrown by the jungle, and over the decades, it became known for being haunted, with visitors and locals reporting ghostly apparitions, strange sounds, and a strange sense of unease. Today, you can explore its rooms and corridors, climb its spiral staircase, and stand on the unfinished rooftop, imagining what life might have been like had the castle been completed. Guides will also share the castle's legends, including stories of William Kelly Smith's ghost and other spirits that are rumored to haunt the site. And maybe you'll be lucky enough to encounter one of them yourself. Number 8. Buzluja Monument in Bulgaria. The Buzluja Monument in Bulgaria is one of Eastern Europe's most mysterious modernist structures. Located in the Balkan Mountains, the huge UFO-shaped structure was built in the 1970s as a tribute to the Breathtaking, and it required efforts of thousands of workers and artists over nearly a decade. The circular hall, which could accommodate hundreds of people, was decorated with mosaics and murals of communist leaders like Marx, Engels, and Lenin, and Bulgaria's own Georgy Dimitrov. Over 35 tons of glass tiles were used to create these mosaics, which covered nearly every wall with representations of socialist ideals and the achievements of the Bulgarian Communist Party. The monument's time as an active state building was short-lived, though, and just 8 years after it was finished in 1989, communism fell in Bulgaria, and with it, the monument was abandoned. The once bright mosaics began to fade, walls crumbled, and the ceiling suffered significant damage. Today, the monument is a ruin, with only parts of its original design remaining, covered in graffiti and heavily vandalized over the years. But despite the state of decay, the monument has become a popular site for a whole new reason. Its desolate, futuristic design has given it a reputation. Monastery that was submerged in the 1940s during the Soviet era and known as the Flooded Bell Tower. It is now a popular destination for those interested in meaningful structures like it. The bell tower was originally part of the monastery of St. Nicholas, which was built in the early 1600s and then was later expanded into a grand cathedral complex by the 19th century. Kalyazin was a thriving town with a rich religious and cultural life, and the monastery was a center of worship for the local people. Standing at a height of 246 feet or 75 meters, this bell tower was a major part of the town's skyline, and its chimes would echo out over the town and nearby Volga River. This all changed in the late 1930s, though, when Soviet authorities undertook a project to build a reservoir as part of the development of the Volga-Moscow Canal, which was designed to support industrial growth. The project required the flooding of large areas along the Volga, including most of the town. Residents were relocated, homes and buildings were destroyed by the Soviet infrastructure projects. Today, the bell tower attracts tourists, and in the summer, boats take visitors to see the tower up close. In winter, when the reservoir sometimes freezes over, you can reach the tower by foot, creating an eerie scene of a structure seemingly standing in the middle of a frozen wasteland. Number 6. The Salt Cathedral of Zipaquira in Colombia. The Salt Cathedral of Zipaquira in Colombia is an incredible underground church that was carved deep within a salt mine. Located about 650 feet or 200 meters below ground, in a small town just outside of Bogota, the cathedral is a unique structure that represents Colombia's mining history. The origins of the Salt Cathedral trace back to the 1930s when miners working in the salt deposits in the mountains carved out a small sanctuary within the mine as a place to pray. And then, over time, this space evolved into something much larger. In the 1950s, inspired by the miners' work, the Colombian government approved the construction and Colombian artistry. Statues of angels, sculptures of saints, and the religious symbols are etched into the salt rock, all of which are carefully lit to enhance the effect. The cathedral also has a large dome and several smaller chapels, each with unique architectural details that highlight the natural texture of the salt and the complexity of the designs. The main altar, where masses and other religious ceremonies are held, offers seating for up to 8,000 people, making the Salt Cathedral a hugely important spiritual place. Without the availability of salt, historic civilizations wouldn't have been able to expand or grow as large as they did, and this had a massive influence on the development of Colombia and the country it's now become. Number 5. Paranella Park in Australia. Paranella Park, which is in far north Queensland, Australia, is a beautiful garden complex with a fascinating history. Built by Spanish immigrant Jose Paranella in the 1930s, this park combines rainforest Art Deco architecture in 1929, where he began building his dream park. Inspired by Spanish castles and gardens, he started building a castle, ballroom, picnic areas, and even a hydroelectric plant using the waterfall's natural flow. One of the most famous features here is the grand staircase, which leads visitors from the upper gardens to the lower sections near the creek. Built by hand, this staircase allowed Jose to transport building materials more easily, and it's now a popular element for visitors looking for the perfect photo. Probably the most ambitious thing about the garden, though, was the hydroelectric plant, which powered the entire property. By using water from Mina Creek Falls, it was one of Australia's first privately owned hydroelectric systems and provided electricity for the park and its visitors. This system, which was designed in the 1930s, allowed Jose to install lights and features throughout the park, creating an atmosphere like no other. Unfortunately, Paranella Park would go on to face a number of other problems, especially donated just like it was when it was first built, casting a warm light on the ruins and gardens, giving a real sense of the vision that Jose once had for this place. Number 4. The Ruwanwelisaya Stupa in Sri Lanka. The Ruwanwelisaya Stupa, which is in the ancient city of Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka, is one of the most important Buddhist monuments in the country. Built in the 2nd century BC, this stupa is one of the 8 sacred places, or Atamasthana, which is considered to be the birthplace of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. The Ruwanwelisaya, also known as the Great Stupa or Mahatupa, was built by the king after he united the island of Sri Lanka. It was a huge challenge, as it was designed to be 338 feet or 103 meters tall, with a circumference of around 951 feet or 290 meters, making it one of the tallest ancient structures in the world. The king saw the stupa as his way to honor the Buddha and celebrate the success of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Maintain this important landmark, and it's been kept in great condition ever since. It now plays a central role in Sri Lankan Buddhist practices and festivals, especially during the Vesak festival, which commemorates the birth, enlightenment, and death of the Buddha. People often offer flowers, light oil lamps, and recite prayers around it, creating an atmosphere of devotion and unity. For centuries, this stupa has been a beacon of hope and strength, especially during times of political struggles and foreign invasions. The story of the king's devotion and his determination to build it, despite various challenges, has become part of Sri Lankan folklore, inspiring future generations with his commitment to Buddhism and the welfare of his people. Number 3. The Jantar Mantar Observatory in India. The Jantar Mantar Observatory, which is in Jaipur in India, is an unusual structure that's one of the largest and best preserved ancient astronomical observatories in the world. Built in the early 18th century by Maharaja Sawaiji's precision, they can still be used today to measure celestial events. There is, for example, the Samrat Yantra, also known as the Supreme Instrument, which is a huge sundial that's 88 feet or 27 meters tall, with a shadow that moves at around 1 millimeter per second, allowing it to measure time down to a precise 2-second interval. Elsewhere, the observatory also has instruments like the Ramayantra, which is used to measure the height and distance of celestial bodies, and the Narivalaya Yantra, which is a pair of sundials that are aligned with the Earth's equatorial plane to measure solar time in both hemispheres. The overall design is deeply rooted in Indian architecture, with instruments being massive sculptural works of art in their own right. The observatory's layout and the positioning of each instrument were carefully planned to capture precise astronomical data and show an understanding of geometry, trigonometry, and structural engineering. Even though the instruments here at Jantar Mantar have now been replaced by modern technology and scientific applications, it does remain part of the local transport infrastructure. The most famous of these is the Wuppertal Schwebebahn, or Wuppertal Suspension Railway, which was built in the early 20th century and is the oldest electric elevated railway with hanging cars in the world. The idea for a suspension railway in this town was first put forward in the late 19th century, as the city faced challenges with traffic congestion. Wuppertal is located in a valley along the Wupper River, so there's very little space for ground-level transportation infrastructure. The city needed an efficient and space-saving solution, and a suspended railway was an ideal way to move across the city's challenging landscape. Construction on the Schwebebahn began in 1898 under the direction of engineer Eugene Langen, who was a leading proponent of monorails. The Schwebebahn officially opened in 1901, and it quickly became a popular fixture in Wuppertal. The railway is 8.3 miles or 13.3 kilometers long and follows the route next to the Wupper River, with most of the track running above the river itself, the city, and it's also appeared in countless films, postcards, and artwork. It's also remembered for a famous event in 1950 when Tuffy, a young circus elephant, was brought on board as part of a publicity stunt. Tuffy panicked and jumped from the train into the river below, and while he fortunately was unscathed, the incident added an extra bizarreness to the Schwebebahn's history and remains a popular local legend. Despite its age, though, the Wuppertal Schwebebahn has continued to evolve, and major modernization efforts took place in the late 20th and early 21st centuries to ensure it remains safe and efficient to use. Today, the Schwebebahn is used by around 80,000 passengers each day, with it still being an efficient way to travel around Wuppertal. Number 1. The Cathedral of Junk in the United States. I can hear the jokes now. The Cathedral of Junk in Austin, Texas is one of the most unusual and unique structures in the world that was created entirely from discarded junk in his backyard as a personal art project. Over the years, it took on a life of its own and began to grow and evolve with the help from friends, neighbors, and visitors who donated their own unwanted items to be included. The result is a sprawling network of towers, rooms, and passageways that's around 33 feet or 10 meters high and fills Hanneman's entire backyard. More than just one man's artistic pursuit, it became a community project that brought hundreds of people together. Visitors can find everything from kitchen appliances and electronic gadgets to toys, car parts, and even fragments of Austin's own history blended into this structure. The cathedral has a few identifiable rooms and levels, each with its own unique vibe. So one selection, for example, has been made entirely of bicycle parts, while another is lined with colorful glass bottles that cast rainbow colors when the sun shines through. With each visit, people discover something new as Hanneman continually changes the structure and adds time to save the cathedral, seeing its value as a landmark that honors Austin's unique spirit. Today, the Cathedral of Junk has gone far beyond being an art installation, and it is a cultural icon representing Austin's creativity and its unconventional character. And for those who visit, the cathedral often encourages a sense of nostalgia with items that remind people of their own past, whether it's an old toy they played with as a child or a household appliance they once owned. In an age where things are thrown away without a second thought, this cathedral shows us that a huge amount of what would usually end up at a landfill could instead be repurposed. Vince Hanneman's project has turned trash into a creative, ever-evolving art form and a community space, and it speaks volumes about Austin as a city and the way that even the most unconventional idea can find a home there and be fully supported in efforts to become a reality. Thanks for watching, everybody. I think I'll donate some junk to Vince. I'll see you next time.